Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for joining this event. We're so excited to host all of you for this event. This is the UCLA Anderson EMBA Experience Leaders in Global Management event. This event is part of an 8-part series where we introduce you to the diversity of thought UCLA Anderson can provide to you as a student. Each event has a different theme or industry featured, so you'll have the opportunity to learn about all of the Anderson academic centers and resources that align with the theme or that industry. We'll add the link to the full 8-part series so that you can sign up for other upcoming events. We welcome you to attend as many of these as you like. So today, as I said, we will be highlighting our Center for Global Management, which offers innovative courses on global trends, international exchanges, and global immersions. This will be followed by a panel of alumni where you can hear their experience firsthand and ask questions. Few housekeeping items. We are recording the session and it will be posted on YouTube for people to view on demand after the event. We welcome you to have your camera on or off during the event. Our recording display will only show our panelists today, but the recording audio will capture all of the session. We will post the recording of the event on our EMBA events page after the event, or you can find these videos on our EMBA YouTube playlist. We'll also have a Q&A session at the end of the event and welcome you to raise your hand and ask the question live or add your question to the chat. We also want to let you know we have other events to address questions specifically about the EMBA admissions application process, your candidacy, and any other admissions related questions. Links to these events will be in the follow-up email that will be sent after the event. So with that said, now I'd like to introduce you to Lucy Allard, Executive Director for the Center for Global Management. Lucy works very tirelessly to offer students the best global offerings at Anderson, and her forward thinking has led to new innovations, particularly during the pandemic. Lucy is also a graduate of our UCLA NUS Executive MBA program. So with that, I'll hand it over to Lucy.
Hey, thank you, Sarika. Let me start to share my screen now. Okay, can everyone see me in the little corner down there? Okay, well, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your lunch hour to learn more about the global opportunities available to you during your 2 years at Anderson as you further consider us as a school to really sort of continue, I think, your leadership, your career, and your professional journey. I'll be sharing with you how choosing Anderson can really help you to become well-rounded and we hope well-informed global citizens and leaders. So before handing you over to our distinguished alumni here, who I know you all want to hear from, over the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking to you about the Center for Global Management, usually abbreviated to the CGM, and sharing more with you about the broader context around the role of the center within the Anderson School, and provide you with a brief snapshot of our courses, our programming, our opportunities that are available to EMBA students to engage on campus and now, of course, virtually, as well as hopefully soon again around the world. And I'll give a quick overview of the EMBA certificate in global management that our 4 alumni here with us today graduated with, that really provides you with, I think, a deeper dive into global management and global trends and global issues. We'll then hear from them about their own experiences in the program. So I don't think I need to tell you that we all really need, I think, to recognize that the world around us is really changing quite dramatically. And I think the pandemic really comes on the heels of a number of trends that were long in the making. And it's been exacerbating these trends, from climate change to public health risk to the emergence of new technologies. And I think the pandemic also has really underscored how interconnected the world is and how domestic well-being is really affected by the rest of the world. So basically, what happens anywhere now matters everywhere. So why is this important? Well, you're tuning in, listening to us today, so I probably don't need to elaborate more with you, but these trends really provide business opportunities and affect opportunities and practices around the world. And global managers and leaders such as yourselves need to develop a keen sense of these evolutions in order to lead successful businesses, organizations, as well as teams. And so the bottom line is really to be a successful leader, whether it be in business or in government or in policy, you really must know the world. And the CGM, I think, really plays a central role at Anderson to help students broaden their understanding and awareness of global issues and trends and their impact on business, society as a whole, and on management practices. So what we strive to do is not just instill in students through our courses the sort of the academic frameworks, but also the cultural, the more social, and the psychological competencies that we believe are important for you to become, well-rounded citizens of the world who can operate in a global marketplace and understand and appreciate diverse cultures and different ways of doing business around the world. And at the Center for Global Management, we really accomplish this through a variety of academic, immersion, and experiential courses and programming. And at Anderson, as you may be aware, you may have tuned in to some of the other sessions, there are a number of industry-based centers focused on technology, entrepreneurship, media and entertainment. Well, the Center for Global Management covers all of these areas, as well as healthcare, social impact, but from a global perspective, so all on a global level. We connect with the other centers, and we also connect more broadly across the UCLA campus on topics and issues that are really cross-cutting in nature and have more of an inter and multidisciplinary focus. So this slide here just gives you an idea of our sort of laundry list of offerings, but I think to really summarize it, how I like to define it is that we bring the world to our students through our on-campus and now obviously our virtual courses and programming, including conferences, policy forums, discussion series. We have a mentoring program as well, but we also take our students out into the world through our global immersion courses, which is probably our signature program, as well as our international exchange. And all of our four alumni here participated in one or more of those opportunities. Students certainly don't need to be pursuing that more sort of customized certificate to participate in our programming or enroll in our courses. They're really available to everybody in the EMBA program. One very important way that we bring the world to our students is through our inventory of on-campus, now offered virtually and in hybrid form, global management courses. And again, our alumni can share with you the courses that they took, but we have courses on global trends, which is a relatively new course that looks at things like the rise of populism, protectionism, now climate change and new technologies. There was a relatively new course on non-market risks, understanding politics and the global context for doing business. New courses get added regularly. In fact, there's a new course on technology and society this year that has a very global focus. And although not added here, in spring of last year, we added two new two-unit courses looking at the impact of COVID-19 on the global economy and on global supply chain. So a lot for you to choose from. This is just an idea of the offerings during this academic year, and obviously subject to change each year. Now, like most centers, we do a lot of events. I think last year in total, we did about 50 events on campus, again, virtually and around the world. And the virtual environment, for us at least, has really provided, I think, a platform for us to reach a wider global audience, to get global speakers and really connect on timely and relevant topics that I think matter to our community and to the world. For us, is also enhanced, I mentioned earlier, our cross-campus partnerships with schools across campus, such as UCLA Health, Geffen School of Medicine, the Fielding School of Public Health. In fact, actually tomorrow, we're hosting, as part of our Centers at Anderson Leadership Series, a discussion with Dr. David Feinberg, who used to run UCLA Health, but is now head of Google Health, and he'll be looking at healthcare transformation and the role of technology. So if that's something you're interested in, it's open to a broader audience, so feel free. I'm sure Sarika can share the link with you. But really throughout the year, we host CEOs, philanthropists, foreign dignitaries, entrepreneurs, world-renowned economists, to really discuss critical issues that impact global business and the political economy. This just gives you a sample of who we've hosted over the last few years. We have a partnership also with the LA World Affairs Council and Town Hall that provides added opportunities for our students to hear from world-renowned leaders. We have a strong partnership with the Milken Institute for Business Law and Policy at the law school, and each year we do 2 forums with them, and it mixes the Anderson students with the law school students, the JD and LLM students, so you can get to hear the legal perspectives of topical issues, and vice versa, they can get to hear your business perspective. We've done sessions on climate change and the environment, global immigration, Brexit, etc. And more recently, we had a fantastic virtual version of COVID effects on contract law from a global perspective. In the spring quarter, we did a new COVID-19 edition of our World Today discussion series. And in fact, we attracted around 3,000 alumni and students to hear from a number of our very distinguished and chaired professors and experts about the implication of the pandemic on the global and political economy, on emerging markets, global supply chain, Wall Street, etc. Our regular World Today discussion series as well, that we held throughout the year, really engages students, I think, in dialogue around current global issues that really transcend borders. Some of our most recent discussions have been on the US-China divorce, US-India relations. A few weeks ago, just before the break, we did a panel discussion looking at equity, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace around the globe. And in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be doing one on environmental sustainability in Asia and the role of green finance in the world, in partnership with the law school's Emmett Institute for Climate Change and the Environment. So again, I think the center helps our students connect and network with graduate students from other areas across the UCLA campus, and at the same time helps you to learn about key emerging regions of the world and looking at what happens in society around the world, and not just locally, but regionally and globally as well. And then from a leadership development standpoint, as I alluded to earlier, we have a mentoring program. And so like most centers, we have an advisory board made up of predominantly Anderson alumni from a variety of industries and sectors. And we have a CGM mentor program. So a number of our advisory board members serve as one-on-one mentors to provide guidance and mentorship on career paths, academics, leadership, and professional development. And we have EMBA students going through that program right now. So hopefully that sort of summarizes our on-campus / virtual opportunities. And now I just want to talk to you a bit about our off-campus opportunities, which are virtual now as well. So we take our students out into the world through these global immersion courses and our international exchange courses. So global immersion courses, as I mentioned earlier, probably the signature program at the Center for Global Management. We've offered nearly 80 now since they started back in 2008. We've been to a variety of different countries, as you can see here, and we have faculty from all different areas at Anderson who have taught in these courses. Now, I think it's important to note here, the global immersion courses are very different to the international business residential that's available to you as an EMBA student. I say very different in that the global immersion courses are open to students from all 4 of our MBA programs, so provides terrific opportunity for you to network with students, not just within EMBA or your different sections within EMBA, but also the different degree programs at Anderson too. But the EMBA IBR is actually modeled in terms of the structure and the content on the global immersion courses, but the EMBA IBR is a core requirement for your graduation, and it's also embedded, the cost of the EMBA IBR is embedded in the cost of your tuition, whereas a global immersion course is an elective course, and there is an additional program fee that students are required to pay if they want to participate in the global immersion. But in both instances, whether it be global immersion or EMBA IBR, the idea is that in these courses, students study the economy, the political environment, and major businesses and industries, startup communities, etc., in the different countries around the globe. Typically with travel, there is 3 on-campus classes, but students can Zoom in if you're a monthly or a hybrid student. So we've been offering the Zoom opportunity for many years now. And then you travel for the 1 week in country, usually during spring break, summer, or in winter break. We look forward to obviously resuming travel once it's safe for us to do so. But in the interim, we're actually offering some virtual alternatives, very exciting and creative alternatives, I think, where we've arranged for guest speakers, virtual tours, and live interactive sessions that will really complement the professors' sessions. And we're doing those over 2 quarters and over a 10-week period. Usually these courses historically focused on doing business in a particular country, but over the years, students have been more interested in those courses that have a bit more of a thematic focus, such as social innovation, social entrepreneurship in South Africa that Ania and Priyanka can talk to, or entrepreneurship in the Nordic countries or in Vietnam, technology transformation in Shenzhen and Hong Kong, business environment of India as well. When we visited Mumbai, it focused on finance and entertainment, and then we flew down to Hyderabad, where the focus was more on healthcare and biotech. We try and have these courses be as timely and relevant and topical as possible. And actually one of our virtual courses, so we're offering a couple of virtual options this quarter, is one of the courses is on Brexit, EU and COVID, and what they mean for doing business in Europe and globally. So I don't think that, that anything could be more topical than that focus for a virtual course. So again, these courses exemplify the One Anderson because they're available to students from across programs. You have a wonderful opportunity to network with our alumni, usually in country, but for our pan-European course, we have a number of our alumni who are going to be Zooming in from Switzerland, Spain, France, Italy, the UK, etc. But when you're in country, you hear from CEOs and from founders, entrepreneurs. It's very immersive and it's very different to traveling on your own. You go and visit companies and really get immersed in the local business environment. So EMBA students can usually start to apply for those for travel in March of their first year. So you're eligible very early on to apply for those courses. And then I just wanted to share this. This is an idea of our upcoming offerings over the next sort of 12, 18 months to give you a sense of the destinations that we're going to be focusing during that time frame. So I think these courses are not only a differentiator for the respective degree programs, but really for Anderson as well as a school. And I think you'll hear from our alumni here that they also provide extremely memorable and transformative learning experiences, and you have the opportunity to meet and travel with some of your lifelong friends as well. And I'm just going to touch on the other opportunity available to EMBA students is the international exchange, and James participated in that with the SADE Business School in Spain, so he can talk more on that. But these are just 1 week exchanges, so very conducive to the EMBA and our part-time EMBA's working schedule. They happen over the summer for 1 particular week, and we welcome students from these schools for 1 week, in fact, during the EMBA block week. So you'd have an opportunity during that EMBA block week to also meet students from these partner schools. There's no fee because it's based upon tuition reciprocity. You're enrolled in an Anderson course, and typically we exchange around 50 to 60 students each year as well. So there might be 3 to 7 spaces available to each of those partner schools. So it's very different to global immersion, again, as James can talk to, because you're actually going to London Business School, for example, and being taught in class by professors from LBS, sitting next to students from LBS, as opposed to traveling with classmates or students from Anderson on your own to a country and visiting companies and hearing from guest speakers. So again, very different, but hopefully provides a wonderful opportunity for you in the EMBA program. And then if you're really interested and you want to sort of encapsulate that and put a bow on it, then you can specialize and concentrate in global management. Again, this is more of a deeper dive into global management and global issues through a number of core courses as well as elective offerings. and then some written deliverables as well. We hope that you'll attend some of the discussion series and then a written deliverable final report, which is more of a reflection. I think that last year we had about 60 students graduate with the specialization and the concentration. So again, very, very popular. And I think personally, that, you know, whether you're a senior product manager at Amazon, or you're a VP at Goldman, or a senior manager at Deloitte, you're going to be a more valuable employee and more successful in your career if you're more well-rounded, more well-informed, and have an understanding of the world and an appreciation of the diversity of the people in it, and different ways of doing business around the world. But enough from me. I now want to sort of introduce to you our wonderful panel here with us today. I'm going to hand it over to each of them, and maybe we'll go in the order in which they appear here on the screen, to really sort of just introduce themselves for a couple of minutes, maybe give a quick overview of your background and your career, and any maybe career change post EMBA that you may have made. And then I will just kick off the Q&A with some questions for each of the our alumni panelists, and then I think we're going to open it up to Q&A from all of the audience attendees. So I don't know if Priyanka is on yet.
I am.
Is she on?
Hi, Lucy.
Hey,
Hi,
good to see you. Maybe you can say a few words of introduction.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Priyanka Dave. I've been a pharmacist for over 10 years. So that has been pretty much my background in healthcare. As a practicing pharmacist, it really, was a wonderful, impactful experience at Anderson, where I was able to interact with a lot of individuals in different industries. And that was one of the main reasons I chose Anderson at the time. And that is because I wanted to broaden my perspectives, because I had been always in healthcare, which I, very much enjoy. But also innovation happens when you actually learn about every industry and how they have been able to solve problems in their industry as well. And so that was one of the main reasons why I decided to choose Anderson, for the diversity of the backgrounds that, that I saw during some of our kickoff events.
Perfect. Thank you, Priyanka. James.
Yeah, hi, this is James Oyang. I work at PIMCO, an asset management firm headquartered in Orange County. By the way of background, I was part of the 2019 class of EMBA. I was part of the bi-weekly session with Helena over there. I concentrated in finance, marketing, and of course, global management as my concentration. As you can see in the background, I participated in the global immersion that was in Shanghai and Beijing. I did the exchange in the Stade, Barcelona around December. And for my international business residency as part of the EMBA requirement, I was in Hong Kong and Shenzhen. For my capstone project, I think that's relevant. I chose the BCO option as opposed to the SMR, and I bring it up because SMR also can potentially have a international component, which I think is important consideration when you're thinking about your journey in the program and what sort of international experience you want to kind of add to your tool belt, and the sort of time, life, and the work schedule you want to balance. I chose, UCLA Anderson, way back when, for the proximity. I live in LA. I foresee myself being in LA, for the duration of my professional and personal career. So I wanted a EMBA cohort friendship network within the LA area, but also given that it's close to where I live and work, I can fully take advantage of what Anderson has to offer, from the Think Center, the Forecast Center, all the CGM events, as well as all the electives I plan to, to participate in with the various speaker series and the seminars. So if anyone wants to talk about work-life balance and also commuting, I'm happy to chat offline. I think at one point I was doing 16 units with 2 core classes, 1.5 elective, as well as a global immersion every other weekend class travel. So I fully took advantage of that during that quarter. I'm happy to talk to anyone who wants to chat more about that. With that, I'll turn it over to Anya.
Hi, everyone. Congratulations on selecting the best school in the country. And thank you, James. I appreciate it. And I can relate. I thought I was crazy for taking, I don't even know how many, 12 electives or whatever it was the last quarter, but clearly you beat me to it. So I have worked with LVMH brands for the last decade. And during the MBA journey, I also started my own business. I became an entrepreneur. Priyanka was on my BPD team, so we sort of know each other quite well. And we went to India together with Global Immersion. So thanks to, going to Palooza, I sat in the audience, sort of kind of what you guys are doing. And I'm like, I heard learning classes, travel, learning businesses. I'm like, this is it from me, like traveling and education. So Lucy can tell you I was probably the most annoying student she had because I emailed her about every 5 minutes because I wanted to go on every immersion. I wanted to go on every exchange. And there was a guy there who was like, I went on 4, and I'm like, I'm gonna beat him. I had a goal. I had a goal the entire time. I only did 3. So, but then Lucy told me that he was a FEMBA. So he actually had an extra year to go on additional travel with the school. So I absolutely have changed my point of view on the world and how I conduct myself as a leader, how I conduct myself in a business setting. And I can't tell you enough what an amazing experience is. You will never get to experience travel like this because you don't have the insight of being with a company like Starbucks in Japan or even Bollywood Sony Studios in India. Like, you'll never get these experiences on your own as a tourist. This is an opportunity of a lifetime, if you do decide to continue. So I guess I'll handle, Helena, we went to Japan together. That's right. Hand it over to Helena.
Thank you. It's so nice to spend the afternoon with everyone. Lucy and Sarika are absolute rock stars, and I miss everyone a lot. I come from public health academia. I went to business school because I wanted to get on the business side of healthcare. I was recently appointed to the Beverly Hills Health and Safety Commission. About a third of Beverly Hills residents were born outside of the US. So having the global muscle in my training has been extremely helpful in preparing me for this role. I traveled to Hong Kong with James and Japan with Anya. And Anderson was my first choice. I'm from LA and my family's here, so that's my bias. But I was also looking for a program that had extremely strong academics, but also very strong experiential learning. And it sounds like everyone agrees that Anderson does a great job of hitting that sweet spot. Happy to share any other part of my experience. I will say that the way the programs are structured and just the way they're so thoughtfully curated was so incredible, and I can't say enough amazing things about the Center for Global Management.
Well, thank you, and I didn't pay you to say that. So let me kick off with just one quick question, and I'll leave it to any one of you that you might want to answer. James, I know you mentioned that you pursued a couple of other concentrations as well, but I'm curious, was the Global Management Certificate something that you knew you wanted to pursue when you applied to or enrolled in the EMBA program, or how did you get introduced to it, and why did you feel that it was particularly an important path for you to pursue during your 2 years at Anderson, when maybe there were other options available to you? I think Ania mentioned, Palooza did it for her, but maybe one of you, Priyanka, if you maybe wanted to answer that question. As an EMBA monthly student as well, talking about how accessible pursuing the global management concentration could be from a monthly student standpoint.
Yeah, I was sitting in a very similar seminar maybe 3 years ago, listening to Lucy talk about all the laundry list of things that you can do as part of an Anderson student. I think, working at a pretty global firm and, having an Asian background myself, I think there's no reason why, global orientation isn't part of any education program, let alone a global MBA program, that especially in finance. So I knew immediately that I need to take advantage of everything that Anderson had to offer, especially the global aspect. And walking into these companies and these speakers with the Anderson sort of logo, on your name tag, that opens more doors versus a tourist. I mean, I have professional connections and colleagues in Asia and Europe, and we can have conversations and have chats about it. But when you're in that setting with the Anderson logo on you, the conversation turns a little bit, and you get a different perspective that you'll never get chatting with a colleague in London or in Hong Kong. So for me, that was a no-brainer. I didn't, think about the certificate. I mean, I was in it for the learning, and I definitely learned a whole lot. And at the end, I was like, oh, okay. I kind of was very close to getting a certificate, so I just wrote a paper and did one or two other requirements, and that's how I got the certificate.
Thank you. Priyanka.
Yeah, so I found out about the program through an MBA fair, and that's when I actually interacted with a few different schools. I wanted to focus my MBA program in California, so that's when I had spoken with, I think, Christina, and I had also talked with Shannon. That's how I came to find out more about the Anderson curriculum and EMBA program. I decided to be a monthly student because with my work schedule that I had at the time, I had to be committed to work on weekends. And so I wanted to be able to take just that one weekend off for school. So it worked out well for me in that sense, better than the bi-weekly schedule. I would really just want to say I went to 2 global immersions. One was the business residential to South Africa. Again, amazing experience, incredible experience. And then we went to India for the global immersion. When I decided to do the India immersion, I was close to getting a global management certificate. Until that point, I didn't really know I wanted to do a global management certificate. I was focused on entrepreneurship. And then taking these classes, they were all just so engaging and so helpful in understanding the global perspectives. When the opportunity presented, I applied for the India immersion, and it was a wonderful experience. Being Indian, I have been in India many times, but you don't learn the business from the academic perspective, or as James and Anya and Helena mentioned, you don't get to meet a lot of these leaders unless you go through university, right? Through Anderson. They have amazing connections in most of the countries that we've gone for the immersion, and so that perspective and the people you meet and the presentations, even engaging with them, interacting with them during the presentations in itself is very meaningful. And so eventually I decided to do both global management and entrepreneurship certificates. And I would just say it was a really wonderful experience. You wouldn't think about the different innovation that's happening in different parts of the world unless you're actually seeing that yourself. And so one of the examples I can give is in India. It was at Apollo hospitals, and they have remote healthcare already for patients there, which is what we see all that innovation happening here as well, given the circumstances that we were in last year. And then South Africa, again, a wonderful experience about things that they're doing for youth empowerment and youth employment. So I just want to say there isn't enough that you can learn. I think there is just so much more to explore at Anderson. And I have reached out to Lucy several times as well with all my questions that I had throughout that certificate and throughout the different classes I took. And they were all very, very meaningful.
Ania, do you want to maybe add to that? And also, I think for you in particular, since you traveled on 3 different global immersions, maybe you can also spend a few minutes comparing and contrasting, and maybe talking a bit about the themes of each of the courses, and maybe some of the highlights, the most memorable times for you in country too.
Sure. So I have got 3 certificates. Global immersion was my main concern, and then entrepreneurship, and I also got in marketing. I saw a question here. Is it realistic to earn more than one certificate? Yes, we are the perfect example of it. So I was really fortunate, and I remember Lucy saying, didn't you go on enough immersions? And then pandemic happened. So I'm so glad I squeezed everything into 2019. So in February, we went to Japan, and it was an eye-opening experience from the culture perspective to how business is conducted there, to the fact that they still use fax machines in the most innovative country in the world. I was floored. I think we were all kind of talking about it. To having sushi at Costco, best sushi ever, by the way. I don't know, Helena, if you agree, but it was amazing. Like, who would think you would get sushi at Costco and you'd be raving about it, right? It's completely very different culture, clearly there. And then in August, we went to Sweden, Finland, which was very much based on entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship in a country like Sweden and Finland is very different in the sense that the government actually supports you to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of programs for entrepreneurs in those countries, if you are a citizen of any of those countries. And it was really eye-opening. And our professor, Professor Abe, he was also made sure that he showed us, we went to an incubator, and we had companies pitch to us, and we were grading them on the pitches, and he was like, don't be kind, just be real. And I think his point was to show us how prepared we were with entrepreneurship through Anderson, and how it compares to other schools in other parts of the world. South Africa was all about social entrepreneurship, and that was the international business residential that Lucy mentioned, which really like opened my eye to what social entrepreneurship. I didn't even know what that meant. I didn't know about triple bottom line. I really, learning about apartheid and how that was in our lifetime, 1995, when it was in I mean, like, it was just a completely different sort of experience. And then we ended 2019 in India with Priyanka, and we stayed longer. But in India, I've learned how I really was so inspired. I was asking our professor what I can do to become an investor in the businesses in India, because they can frog leap so many things that we've done here in the United States. And I was just really like impressed by not just the culture, but like the innovation and everything. And even we went to the I Institute, and I was just blown away by their what they're doing. And we were like, why aren't we doing this in America? I don't understand it. So each experience is very unique and very different. I know I had some hesitations, and Lucy, by the way, you'll learn, Lucy will answer your email in like 30 seconds. I don't know, I think she lives with her phone. So every single question I had, Lucy will be there and answer for you. I had some hesitations, she sort of addressed it. So, and it really becomes like, I think one of the things is also like, even though the professors should be from the country you're going to, even though, so they're either from there or they have a huge connection to it. So like our Japanese professor knew their right hand to the minister of Japan and had all these ins. So like, you will certainly not experience this anywhere else. And Lucy, when is the alumni trips coming up? But they're coming up soon, because I'm ready.
Well, it's actually interesting you say that, because obviously with the pandemic, we have some of the students in the 2020 and 2021 class have missed out on a lot of opportunities. So we do anticipate opening up spots to alumni. We've always made spots available to alumni on a space available basis, but I think we're actually going to be setting spots specifically aside now for alumni, at least for the foreseeable future. So watch this space. Now let's hear from Helena. I'd love to hear, Helena, your experience, why you selected the global management concentration, and maybe you can share some of the most valuable lessons that you feel you learned in pursuit of that particular path, whether it be on global immersion or an on-campus global management course.
Sure. I knew that I would stay in the same industry before and after business school, so I wanted to really hone my lens globally. And yeah, I think just learning how to interact with and learn with and work with all different types of people from different backgrounds, and be very sensitive to cultural nuances, and learn, you know, what is culturally appropriate and expected, but then also how to move past differences and how to make business deals happen that are mutually valuable and beneficial. That was incredible. So hearing from boots on the ground in the different countries, where it wasn't just theoretical academics and it wasn't just anecdotal, it was day to day. This is how business transactions are done, just despite whatever sort of cultural differences might be present. So really, you know, getting to the really good stuff and the grit of how innovations like Anya talked about are operationalized, and how really great ideas can bubble to the surface, and how just the, you know, the operations of it was really exciting to me.
And I think one important thing to note that maybe I might not have alluded to is the professors travel with you in country, and more often than not, the professors, for example, might be from that country. So Professor Mariko Sakabara is from Japan, and she teaches the Japan Global Immersion. Professor Gail Northrup, who teaches the Social Innovation, Social Entrepreneurship in South Africa course, is actually on the faculty. She's on the Anderson faculty. She's an alum, actually, but she's also on the faculty of the University of Cape Town's Graduate School of Business. She has her own non-profit consulting company, and she works a lot with countries on the companies or organizations on the continent of Africa, but in particular in South Africa. So she goes back and forth in normal times 3 or 4 times a year. So I think it's important to highlight that as well. It's not just faculty, you know, not just faculty who are Anderson faculty, it's actually Anderson faculty from the country or have deep understanding, expertise, and or connections in that particular country too. So before we go, and I know there are a number of audience questions that I think Sarika is maybe going to read out. I'd like James, maybe for you to share a bit more about the exchange experience, because you obviously participated as an EMBA student on the international exchange at Asade Business School. So share a bit more about that experience and maybe compare and contrast it with your experience on global immersion.
Sure, and I think there's probably a theme that you can gather from how, you know, the 4 of us have kind of connected. You know, it's great that you're learning about the countries, the speakers, the industries, etc. That's all valuable. But another aspect of it that you're going through with your classmates, right? So in the IBR, you're going through with your other EMBA classmates, but then in the other program, you're mixed with FEMBA students, full-time MBA students, and maybe even some other programs as well. So, you know, going through that process is also is invaluable. Like for my first exchange, going to Shanghai and Beijing, I was, you know, I shared a room with an EMBA student who was a class earlier than me. And, you know, in between, you know, getting ready and bus rides, he gave me invaluable experience that I, you know, wouldn't learn from, you know, from just kind of talking to them in a more formal setting. So the bonding experience within the EMBA program and outside the program is extremely valuable. For the exchange in the Asade, you know, I attended that with 2 other EMBA students and 2 FEMBA students. There were 5 of us. We had to, you know, arrange our own lodging. So we found an Airbnb in Barcelona. We rented it for the week. You know, we share, you know, cab rides together. We explored the city together. And then we sat in a course, and that was in December, and happened to coincide with one of their schools equivalent to our monthly program. So we sat in a room with them over, you know, a 3-day period, about 20 hours of instruction across 2 classes. You know, I personally selected a brand management class as well as a finance class. So when you're sitting in the classroom over this long period of time with students in country, you get to have those conversations. And in Spain, you know, they love the coffee break. So we had, you know, every 2 hours of coffee break, and we share, you know, great food, great conversations, great coffee with them. We had, you know, adult beverages, you know, after hours. And it also worked out that it was December, so we joined their holiday party and had a karaoke, you know, singing contest of some kind. so doing all of that, is invaluable, adding to your experience. I'm sure all of us are thinking about MBA because we're trying to fill a gap. And in these experiences, you're filling a gap not only by expanding your network, but also adding to your learning as well. So I was strongly encouraged to, to apply to one of those if your schedule, allows.
Thank you. Well, I think hopefully everybody's got a good idea of from our 4 alumni here in terms of their experience, some of the key benefits and takeaways and lessons learned from both in country as well as just focusing on the concentration and its importance to them personally and professionally. So I think I'm going to hand it over to Sarika, and maybe she can use some of the questions from in the chat, or ask the audience whether they have any questions they'd like to ask.
Absolutely. So I'll answer the questions that have, or ask the questions that have already come through in the chat, and then please do feel free to raise your hand and ask your question either live or through the chat. Thank you again to Lucy and to the panel. This has been really informative even for us in the admission side, so thank you for that. So one of the questions, we'll just start from the top here, is there a certain point in the program where you need to declare you want to certify? And by that, I mean like that you want to declare a specific certificate. Anya, do you want to answer that question?
Sure, I think that's a Lucy question, but I told Lucy from the get-go, like, I'm in, but I think it's the sooner the better. It's better to tell Lucy, yes, I'm interested, so she adds you to the events that she sends out, so you can participate. And by the way, I went to almost all of them, so she got kind of sick of seeing me. But it's so informative, and it's you learn so much from it, and you also have to write essays about it for the certificate, guys. So that's why you go to the events, then you do your write-ups. You got to do 5. So you want to sort of let her know, so she invites you to everything that's coming up. And then if you don't want to continue, at some point you change your mind, then no harm, no foul. Lucy, right? Am I wrong here?
Yeah. So as Ania mentioned, the earlier you declare it, but it's just saying, I think I might be interested in. It doesn't hold you to any obligation whatsoever. I think the EMBA office likes you to fill out a form just for your own, self-tracking purpose. But again, even if you start filling out the form, it doesn't hold you under any obligation whatsoever. But the earlier you can notify me, the better, because as Ania mentioned, I keep a separate list of students who at one point during their time at Anderson have expressed interest in global management issues, potentially pursuing the certificate. Necessarily, because we have some events where we have very limited capacity, and so I don't send out notification of those events to the entire EMBA community. I only send out notification to students on that particular list. And also, in addition to the courses, there are some written assignments as well, and they're based upon some of the events that we host. So the earlier the better, but again, under no obligation. And if you decide couple of months before graduation that you're not going to be able to complete the deliverables, then no worries at all.
Thank you.
We just want you to learn. So
and I know that for Matthew's question, Helena addressed that, and the world is your oyster. Love that. We have a few more here, so we'll get to these. This is from Rogelio. In the monthly program, did you feel like you were able to connect with your peers, or did you feel like you were at a disadvantage given that you only saw your peers once per month?
I can take that. I was a monthly student. I'm not sure about everyone else. Anya was in bi-weekly. So I really had a great time being a monthly student as well. I definitely would say there is less networking compared to bi-weekly. But we were told that monthlies were more, getting together more often and doing more things. Whenever we were at school for that weekend, we would make the most out of it. So we would make sure that after classes, we encourage each other to kind of hang out and learn from each other, or talk about and catch up with each other on things that are happening in personal and professional lives. And I really felt like it was a big family. I really honestly would say it's just not, we don't just say it for the sake of it, that it's EMBA family. I did feel that a lot of friends and Everyone who I've met is very supportive. They will answer your any questions with school, or even support you through any sort of challenges you might be facing during your personal life or whatnot. So I felt okay with our monthly program in terms of we just had to keep up with our curriculum and on the side keep up with our lectures. Everyone was on a different schedule, so anytime our group had to meet up for finishing up the homework assignments, we would just figure out our timings accordingly based on everyone's commitments outside of school. And it worked out fine for the most part. I mean, in my second quarter, we actually lost one of the students, as in they dropped out, and it was quite a bit of work. But again, as I mentioned, you make it work. Everyone just wants to be successful together. And as long as everyone shares their expectations for themselves from the program and also expectations for their grade in a class, it really helps figure out how much one person is going to be committed towards one class versus the other. And that helps balance out your homework sharing. So at the end, it works out. It can be hectic at times. You just have to keep up with your lectures and your homework.
Thank you, Priyanka. I realize you are the sole representation from the panel, so thank you for that. The next one is from Karthik. Based on your experience, what would be the time you would have to invest per week during EMBA, apart from the EMBA classroom sessions? Helena, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, I mean, it really is subjective, and it varies day by day, week by week, term by term. It's such a high ROI though, so whatever you put in, you'll definitely get out. I never counted, but it's a lot. 15, 20 hours a week. Some of it's over drinks, so it depends if you count that or not.
It's a working get together, right?
I mean, here's the thing, it's doable.
Thanks, Helena. I think the next one would be good for Lucy, which is how did COVID impact the immersions in 2020? Are there any innovations to the immersion program to make the program more effective?
So the beginning part of 2020 was a bit of a blur. We were supposed to be traveling with 120 students to China, to Israel, and to Brazil. We pulled the plug on China at the end of January, and then Brazil and Israel end of February, I believe. So just a few weeks before we were due to travel in country. But we quickly redesigned the courses. Obviously, we weren't able to travel, but we redesigned them and we added in extra sessions. So some of the same entrepreneurs from Israel or technology leaders from China and academics and alumni, in fact, from Brazil zoomed in for some virtual class sessions. We actually reduced it down from 4 units to 2 units. We had very short time to do that, but now obviously we didn't travel in 2020, but for 2021 we've had additional time to plan these, and I wanted to make sure that there was something, although we all hold out hope that we will be able to travel again soon, but we wanted to be able to provide students with something in the meantime. And so as I was mentioning earlier, for our virtual global immersion courses, they will still span the 2 quarters and we'll have 10 classes, but about 5 of those classes, so about half, will replace the in-country week, where speakers will be zooming in from Switzerland, from India, from Spain, France, UK, to talk about the impact of that particular course on that Brexit has had on their particular industry and sector, as well as COVID. And then we're working with our partner who usually works on the logistics in country to do 3D virtual tours of the European Parliament and winery tour, etc. So we're trying to be creative. We had our first session this Sunday and I'm just thrilled with how it's going. I think it is a very creative alternative. It's a great way to engage our alumni as well, and for you guys to meet our alumni and to network and to hear from them as well. And so the environment. I think the global immersions virtually, at least when you look at a broader region, as I mentioned earlier, usually when we travel, we can't do more than 2 cities or countries justice in the space of 1 week. But this virtual environment allows us to look more regionally. So maybe we will continue these post-COVID, in addition to offering additional courses with travel. So we're looking for new and innovative ways. I'm sure with virtual reality as well, you know, we'll become even more creative down the road, but we'll continue to offer virtual until such time as we're able to travel again.
Thank you, Lucy. I think we're all itching for, you know, we all have the travel bug at this point. So it's nice to think and look forward and look ahead for sure. I think we might have time for one more question, and there it is from Peggy. What will be the location of the International Business Residency for class 2023?
So we usually survey, so the EMBA IBRs are run out of the EMBA office, but we usually survey the EMBA students to see, we might give them 4 or 5 choices, and they state their preferred choice. I will say that for the 2020s, September, because you travel in between your first and second year, the destinations last year were supposed to be Spain, Australia, and India. But the idea now is that those students will travel hopefully in June time, and they've extended the graduation, and they'll be going to Australia, Southeast Asia, as opposed to India, and to Spain. They just surveyed the class of 2022. They're looking at potentially South Korea, at Germany, a country, maybe Brazil and Latin America, and South Africa. So we actually work very closely with the EMBA office so that we don't sort of replicate the same destinations that the EMBAs are going to provide you with more of a variety of options during your 2 years. So, you know, not only do we work closely with the EMBA office, we work closely with all of the degree program offices to avoid conflicts as well. There's a lot of, you know, EMBA classes on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So when we schedule our classes before we travel in country, we have to coordinate very closely with the degree program offices to avoid all of those conflicts, you know, with the monthly, with the blended, and with the bi-weekly sections too. But you know, you'll get a list of countries, I would imagine, around about now. So we're in January, and you'll get to vote and select your preferred option, and then that will help to drive the destinations for your particular class.
Thank you, Lucy. So I just want to wrap up, say thank you to everyone, Lucy and our wonderful panelists. We will have this information for you available later as well via recording, but just wanted to thank you all so much for joining, and hope you have a better idea of our offerings in global management. Just a friendly reminder before we end is that we have a round 2 deadline to apply, which is February 1st. And we do evaluate on a rolling admissions basis. And we look very forward to seeing you all at future events and answering any questions that you may have. So with that, thank you so much. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.